Celaena kind of once again talking to the previous queen of the castle in the hidden passageway that's in the castle, and apparently now doorknobs can talk. So we slowly see more and more magic being introduced. Again to another book review. Now I am in the same clothes as the last book review because I actually finished these two books on the same day. Now the book we're going to be talking about today is Crown of Midnight, and it's another Sarah J. Maas book because I ended up listening to the audiobook while reading the other series. So in this book, we focus on an assassin named Celaena Sardothien, and this is the second book in the series, so if you do not want book 1 spoiled for you, or this book spoiled for you, I suggest you come back to this review once you've read it, because there will be spoilers. Now with that being said, let's get into the characters. So the characters of this book are once again Celaena Sardothien, an assassin who was brought into the kingdom for purposes that the king had not yet revealed in the last book, Dorian, the king's son, and Chaol, her kind of bodyguard and the head guard to the prince. Now, with that being said, let's get into my thoughts on this book. So, after the events of the last book, where the king was bringing champions into the kingdom to see who would represent him for some mission, it turns out Celaena won the competition, becoming the king's assassin. And so we finally find out what the king was bringing these champions into the kingdom for, and that was so he could take care of a rebel group he thought was forming in the kingdom, and he could use the warriors to take care of the rebel group. And through this, we see Celaena kind of once again talking to the previous queen of the castle in the hidden passageway that's in the castle, and apparently now doorknobs can talk. So we slowly see more and more magic being introduced, even with Dorian himself developing powers that he didn't know he originally had. And he's worried about this because the king wants no one but himself to have magic and is willing to execute anyone he finds that has magic inside the kingdom other than him. It's very much a I want to be the only one with power so I can stay in control scenario, which is also why he's kind of so worried about this rebel group. He thinks that there are people with power in his group that could help take him out, including Princess Nehemia, Celaena's friend, who we end up finding a little more about, and who actually is the leader of the rebel groups that the king is so worried about. And we find out that even though Celaena is the king's champion, she has not been executing anyone that the king has ordered her to execute. She's actually been protecting them, thinking that they were wrongfully accused by the king and not trusting the king. And so it very much becomes this book about dancing around the truth, or how are we going to get around the king and what he wants to do to the kingdom, because he very much is power hungry and is very much worried about anybody challenging him for control, because he wants to be the only one with power. He's a very insecure person in that way, where he has to take power away from everybody else just to feel powerful himself, which kind of makes him seem like such a pathetic king. I feel like Celaena said many times in the first book, she could easily take the king out despite his ability to use word marks, as they're called, or runes or spell marks, or they call them word marks, which is probably the lamest thing I've ever heard runes called. But the king very much wants to be the only one to use these word marks, which Nehemia used in the first book to protect Celaena from the attacks that Cain had sent her way via monster that he summoned from a different world using the word marks. So word marks can be used for good, for evil, for healing, or for destruction. It all depends on the person wielding them and that person's intentions. And there is something that happened in this book that I was like, okay, you are very much not attentive for that, but telling you what it was would probably be a huge spoiler. And even though I like talking about books, I want to try my best to avoid spoilers at all possible, which, yeah, does make it hard to review these, sort of, but I want you guys to read these books if you haven't. And so I don't want to spoil major stuff for you unless it's something that really, really, really vehemently annoyed me and I feel like it is essential to my review to talk about the thing that annoyed me. I kind of tend to like dance around what annoyed me in books or what I found like fascinating or over the top. But so we find out that Nehemia has been actively challenging the King's Vi to be the only one with powers because she herself has powers over word marks. And Celaena, in her time talking to the previous queen, and now a doorknob that talks, that's very Alice in Wonderland. And I don't understand the talking doorknob. Like, it was just a little too much. I was like, in Alice in Wonderland it worked because that world was supposed to be trippy. You were supposed to think things were bizarre and weird and wonder-filled and crazy. But in this it just kind of was like, okay, there's a talking doorknob now. That's kind of odd. Like, I could get the talking statues because there's a spirit of the previous queen behind them. But a talking doorknob? A sassy talking doorknob at that. So it kind of becomes another mystery, and I think that unlike the first book where I picked the villain out right away, like he was my first guess at who the villain was, I am only spoiling that it was a he because by now you should have already read the first book if you're watching the second book's review. So I picked Cain out of the lineup right away. So the twist in this one was a lot more well done, and I didn't see it coming, unlike in the first book where he was literally the first person I guessed. I did not see the twist villain in this one coming, and it kind of made the thing that annoyed me make a lot more sense, because otherwise I was like, what are you guys doing? How could you be so stupid? This was so dumb. You just let this happen, and you had every reason not to let it happen. But then with the twist, it was like, oh, that was on purpose. You let it happen on purpose. You weren't trying to protect them. It happened on purpose. And it was like such a better twist compared to the first book's twist. And apparently Sarah J. Maas likes her Fae now. I wish she would have strayed more away from Fae and just explored magic without the Fae element to it. Because major spoilers ahead, but so if you don't want the spoilers, skip ahead. I don't know the timestamp, but spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, everybody don't want the big spoiler gone. Celaena is a Fae. And not just a Fae princess. I'm like, did we have to do Fae again? We've already been here. Like, we've already been here. You already did Fae. I just read a whole series where you had Fae in them. Could we just have had, like, mages or sorceresses or witches or something? Why did it have to be Fae again? Like, what is it with Sarah and her Faes? But I liked these characters. I liked Celaena and her history and finding out more about her and why she is drawn to all this word mark stuff. The thing I didn't like is that Chaol and Celaena kind of get together in this one, and it's the whole time I just felt like it was brother and sister together because they very much felt like an older brother, younger sister scenario with the way that they interacted and the way that Kale had to babysit her constantly. So them going from like that kind of feel to like suddenly romance, I was like, go back to Dorian, I don't like you too. Like, it didn't work for me because they felt like brother and sister through all the previous book, and then now they're a couple. But other than that, I enjoyed this book. It was a good audiobook to listen to on my walk. I don't think this one was as funny or as endearing as the first one, mainly because of events that happened in the first book. Dorian and Celaena didn't interact any as much, and the funny parts of the book came from Dorian and Celaena's interactions, so not having them together as much kind of took that away. But I really enjoyed this book. It once again left on a cliffhanger, and I cannot wait to start the next book so that I can see where the book is going to go. I'll probably start the next book on my walk if it's nice tomorrow. So I hope to see you next time, and I hope you guys enjoy. Bye!